Good morning, Monday morning. The videos this week are going to focus on the idea of seeing through and embodying. Seeing through the self, seeing through thought, seeing through truth, right? What do we mean by truth? How do we create that framework? How do we embody that framework? And ultimately looking at the veil of mortality. How do we prepare for that? And I see these subjects as definitely a continuation of what I was talking about last week with the idea of the sort of fundamental, foundational presence of consciousness. And even the week before that, the principles of practice. This week is more experiential, more, I want to share some of the, some of the ideas, some of the language, but I'm trying to think of it as the embodiment of the practice. So today, what is it to see through the self? And all of these tie together because seeing through the self is seeing the truth of how things really are. It's recognizing that the self is a construct that is not just going to die, but is actually dying at every given moment because the self is a process. I'm going to start with a story. It's a story of an experience I had that I think you'll hear the story. It's an experience. So let me just dig into it. It's from a while ago now, maybe 15 years ago, because it was early morning, maybe 6:30 in the morning, and I was in downtown Pittsburgh. So it was definitely well before COVID. And it was also a time in my life when I would get up early and go into town and go to the gym and work out and run and do all of that before getting to the office at 7-ish or so. So I can date it probably to maybe 20 years ago, because it was the mid-2000s that I was running and doing, working out like that. So I'd finished. It was still dark. I was on my way to the office. So it was winter. But there was no snow on the ground, and the air was cold, very clear, and the sky was incredibly rich, the darkness of the sky. And I was aware of the darkness of the sky, even though I was walking across a square in town that was quite brightly lit. But there weren't a ton of people there yet. And I was listening to music. I had headsets in and I was listening to Messiaen. I was listening to the piano pieces, Vingt Regards sur l'Enfant Jesus. The 20 regards, 20 contemplations on the birth of Jesus. And I don't remember which one. There are 20 of them. And I remember looking up at the sky, right, this dark, rich canvas of the night sky, and seeing stars, which is uncommon when you're in the city. Often the residual ambient light of the buildings is enough to make it really difficult to see the sky, either because it covers up the night, it's brighter than the night sky, or because my night vision is not good. But in this particular moment, as I was walking across the square and aware of the darkness of the sky and the brightness of the stars, the patterning of the stars seemed to line up with the music. And, I talk about Messiaen a lot, and in part it's because of experiences like this, where in Messiaen's music, you can get a sense of these gestures that seem to spiral away from an object, like that glittering hyperspatial object that I talked about last week from the McKenna images, the glittering object in hyperspace. Some of Messiaen's music feels like these effusions from an unseen source that triggers the sound. Messiaen's music also has this sense of deep patterning, and that we are seeing a window of a pattern that, if we could see the full extent of the overlapping patterns and the conditions of canon and augmentation and the techniques that Messiaen uses, if we could see that pattern unfold in its entirety, we would witness the duration of the universe. We get that sense, right? And I was feeling both of those. I was walking, and I felt strong. I had just finished running. I was clean. I was preparing for a day's work. And as I was walking across the space it's called the Pittsburgh Plate and Glass, the PPG Plaza in Pittsburgh, which is, an office building, but it is a square, or it's built around a square, and there are these sort of castle-like spires, right? There are 4 of them that jut up, so it's quite an unusual building, and although I don't think it's the case anymore, it was built for the headquarters of Pittsburgh Plate and Glass, which at the time was sort of an international supplier of industrial glass. Right? So it's a very reflective space, and in terms of light, which may be one reason why the darkness of the sky was so vivid as I was walking through. But I felt as I was walking that although I was moving, it was the earth that was moving, and I was moving. I was stepping in place, as if I was on a conveyor belt. And then at the same time, the stars seemed to be connected, just for a moment, by this network of bright neon green. For that moment, and it was just I've talked about it already 100 times longer than the moment lasted. But the stars seemed to be connected in a synaptic pattern. Right? It looked like what I would imagine the synapses of the brain look like, as if the processing and experience inside my head was reflected and it was very clearly neon green that was connecting the bright dots of the stars. And for that moment, for just that small instance, there was no distinction between the body that, remember, was walking but not moving, the sky that was dark and rich, filled with bright lights that were connected by neon green, and then this music was playing this sort of intercessionary role, right? This liturgical role. Now, I look back on that now, and there's more than just connection. Like, there's more than just this idea that there's a shared perception, there's a sense of recognition and being known. That, yeah, on the one hand, being known is the cosmos looking back, the sense of a personal, relational entity undergirding that foundational consciousness. And I explore that idea. In this case, the being known felt being positioned like a jigsaw puzzle, piece fitting perfectly in. It also felt like maybe an anticipation of mortality that spread out across the sky in a bright neon splurge of music might be what it feels like to be dead. But this veil of the self absorbed into this sensation of being known. I would not have said this 20 years ago, although I did write about it. It's in my book. But I put a lot on that experience. Now, looking back, the things that are important to me are sort of the correct positioning of perception, so that we're not mistaken in our intentions or in our actions, in my intentions. Let me make this embodied. My intentions, my actions, my thoughts are unfolding with this this directive of, and undergirding it all is the sense of being known. And the times that I am frantic in my practice, the times that I lose confidence, are the times that I don't feel seen. And being seen has this sense of fitting. There's an inner voice that I have, that you have, and that inner voice is what I try to tap into in these videos, because it feels good and true. But one of the reasons it feels good and true is that that voice exists in all of you, and it is through that connection of that inner voice, which can be accessed through this kind of experience of really scrutinizing the framework, the veil of self, really looking. Look, this is an experience. We're walking from the YMCA to an office in downtown Pittsburgh. It wasn't something that required 3 years in a cave. It wasn't something that even necessarily required a particularly stable practice, because 20 years ago, what did I know? I can already hear my 20-year-older self looking back on me today, perhaps watching this video and thinking, yeah, what did 56-year-old Andrew know? Nothing. You knew nothing. But you have to trust that inner voice, because that inner voice is the voice that knows and sees and is known and is seen. Let's end there for today. For the rest of the week, then, looking through the lens of self, looking through the lens of death, looking through the lens of thought, like truth. What passes through the veil? What is the content and quality of that veil? And how can we embody it? the embodiment of the practice. Yeah? It was a good week. It's Easter week, so it's a good time to be really drilling in, drawing in. But if you have any questions, anything that comes up, drop me a comment. Thursday will be Q&A, as always. So this is a good week to send some questions. But otherwise, keep your wits about you.